Of all the VCRs in the world, this tape had to go into mine. Me, I'm a day late, and the tape in question, 1991's Cast a Deadly Spell. Cast a Deadly Spell was created by HBO Pictures to run on their cable service, HBO, back in 1991. I myself didn't see it until it came out on videotape later. It's an homage to all the old 1940s and 1950s detective noir films such as The Big Sleep and The Maltese Falcon. Only this time, magic and the supernatural are real. Think the Dresden Files, but set in the 40s. Fred Ward, best known for The Right Stuff, Trimmers, and Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins. Plays Detective Harry P. Lovecraft, a hard-boiled detective who is one of the very few people in Los Angeles that does not use magic.
You don't believe in magic? I believe it. Just don't use it.
Lovecraft is hired by Amos Hackshaw, played by veteran actor David Warner, to find a book stolen by his former chauffeur Larry Willis. The book in question? The Necronomicon. The Necronomicon is a creation of real-life author H.P. Lovecraft. It is an evil book filled with spells and incantations on how to contact the Great Old Ones, evil supernatural beings from before the time of man. If you've seen the Evil Dead movies, then you know what the Necronomicon is. Hackshaw tells Lovecraft that it is a book that discusses magic, and he needs it for a lecture he is giving in 2 days. He's most emphatic about it. If he doesn't get the book back before midnight and 2 days hence, he won't need it at all. Lovecraft takes the case and begins the hunt for the missing chauffeur and book. His first stop? Willis's apartment. There he finds a paper with the note, Union Station, 1 bag, and later a photo of a couple named Mickey and Lily taken at the Dunwich Room, which is a swanky nightclub/restaurant in the heart of L.A., and his next stop. Once there, Lovecraft tries to get some information from one of the bartenders, but the bartender isn't too helpful.
I know nothing. Nothing.
After that encounter, the MC announces tonight's singer, Connie Stone. Lovecraft swivels in his bar stool and looks on in surprise. After she sings her song, Lovecraft walks over and says hello. They grab a booth and begin to reminisce about old times. Apparently they have a history. Before long, Mr. Tugwell and a very large zombie show up to inform Lovecraft that Mr. Borden wants to see him. Mr. Borden is the owner of the club and Lovecraft's former partner on the police force. They trade barbs for a bit until Lovecraft asks Borden if he's read any good books lately. Borden plays dumb and has his goon Tugwell see Lovecraft out. After seeing Lovecraft out, Tugwell tells his boss that Lovecraft knows about the book and that he's going to put a stop to Lovecraft's investigation. So Lovecraft returns to his office, which has a pull-out bed. He has a couple of drinks and he calls it a night while thinking about his ex. Morning comes and he's awakened by Olivia Hackshaw, Amos's 16-year-old virgin daughter, who's the last of the unicorn hunters in Los Angeles. She came by to apologize for giving him a hard time yesterday after her father hired him. Also, she's really tired of being a unicorn hunter and wants to be rid of that burden, if you know what I mean. He isn't into jailbait, but he does take her to have some breakfast. She's all too happy to go as her father generally keeps better tabs on her as he's trying to maintain her unicorn hunting status. Mr. Tugwell is at a booth on the other side of the diner and can't be seen due to a partition. He pays the waiter who then gives them Lovecraft's ticket. Tugwell then writes an incantation on the back of the ticket. The last person to read the incantation will have a demon summoned to kill them. The waiter delivers the ticket to Lovecraft and runs off to the kitchen when Lovecraft reads it and realizes what it is. He tells Olivia to stay put and chases after the waiter. Lovecraft catches the waiter and tries to get him to look at the bill, but the cook jumps him and they fight for a bit. Lovecraft eventually wins, but in the confusion, the dishwasher picks up the ticket and he reads it. The waiter, scared, tells him to stop and grabs it away from him and looks at the ticket by mistake. A large pot on the stove starts to boil over and then starts to deform as if something was hitting the pot from the inside. A demon emerges and attacks and kills the waiter. Lovecraft has the dishwasher open the freezer door and he takes a pan and he hits the demon, knocking it into the freezer, and they lock it inside. Later at the police department, Captain Bradbury cheerfully tries to get Lovecraft to come back to the force. He says things are getting crazy out there and they could use his help. Lovecraft declines, saying he likes being his own boss. So Bradbury turns to the matter at hand and asks Lovecraft who wants him dead, but Harry isn't very forthcoming. Bradbury then asks who the skirt they brought him in with is, and Lovecraft says it's the daughter of a client, but he won't tell him anymore. Bradbury then turns on the spotlight and begins an interrogation. Meanwhile, Olivia takes a shine to Officer Grimaldi out in the main part of the precinct, and the two flirt for a bit. We cut back to Lovecraft a bit later when a lawyer shows up claiming to represent him. Lovecraft is turned loose, and we learn that the lawyer is the cousin of his landlady, Miss Kropotkin. She's a witch who runs a dance studio in the space across from Lovecraft's office. She tries to get him to leave Los Angeles as the signs and portents are bad, but Lovecraft is determined to solve his case. When blood-red clouds move across the moon, Lovecraft mentions the Necronomicon to her, and she tells him that is a book to bring about the end of the world. Lovecraft drops Olivia off at her house, and her father is none too happy as he's worried that Lovecraft might have helped her to lose her unicorn hunting status. Lovecraft gives him an update on the progress he's made, and Hackshaw is pleased and tells Lovecraft to continue with the investigation. On the way home, Lovecraft sees that he's being followed and confronts the driver of the car. It is Officer Grimaldi. Lovecraft suggests that he keeps an eye on Olivia instead, and Grimaldi says that he'll think about it. Lovecraft goes back to his office and finds Connie waiting for him. They exchange some snappy 40 Styles banter about why they broke up, and that eventually leads to some off-screen sexy time. The next morning, Connie says that Borden had a guy named Mickey that worked for him, but she thinks he's dead now. He brought Borden a book, but the pages were all blank, so he sent Tugwell after him, and she hasn't seen him since. Lovecraft shows her the picture of Mickey and Lily, and she says that it was the same Mickey, and that she had seen Lily around the club a time or two. Lovecraft asks her why she came to his office last night, and she says that she might have made a mistake choosing Borden over him. She tells him that she has a place of her own now, and to come over and see her sometime. Then we cut to a bit later as Lovecraft is leaving his office. Miss Kropotkin is leaving for Miami, and she needs to give him something. Before he knows it, she places a magical bracelet on his wrist and charms it so that he can't remove it. She says he'll need it if he's looking for the Necronomicon. She then bids him farewell and heads to the train station to get out of Dodge. Elsewhere, Olivia is out hunting unicorns, and she scares the bejesus out of Grimaldi when she sends an arrow his way as he's skulking in the bushes. To make it up to him, she takes him into the house for a brandy. And while that is going on, Lovecraft takes a drive out to Vista Bonita. You may remember it from the letterhead on Mickey's note found in Willis's apartment. What we see is a new housing tract being built by zombies. The saleswoman is happy for a potential client and eagerly greets Lovecraft. He says he's a friend of Mickey's and is wondering if he is around today. He finds out that Mickey isn't there today, but he is the man that is behind the project to create Vista Bonita. Lily's name comes up, and the agent tells Lovecraft that Lily is Mickey's sister. He says he hasn't seen her in a while and would like to catch up. Fortunately, the agent knows that Lily is staying at a nearby hotel and gives Lovecraft the address. Lovecraft calls Connie and asks if she would do him a favor. She agrees and comes out to see him. Lovecraft has her call Lily from the hotel lobby, since Lily and Connie have crossed paths at the Dunwich Room. Lily agrees to come down to talk to Connie in the lobby bar. Lovecraft is waiting for Lily and says they need to talk in private. Lily takes him back up to her room and Lovecraft knocks her out and then goes through her things. He finds the book in Lily's luggage. Lily wakes up and says, "What the heck?" Lovecraft walks over and takes Lily's wig off. Turns out, Lily is actually Larry Willis. He and Mickey are a couple. Larry asks about Mickey. Lovecraft tells him the bad news. Larry says he needs to get out of the town quick, and Lovecraft agrees to help for the whole story. Turns out, Mickey was just the face for Vista Bonita. It is actually owned by Lovecraft's old partner, Borden. Hackshaw offered to buy all the land for more than it was worth, so Borden had Mickey get someone into Hackshaw's household to find out why. Mickey got Larry to be their chauffeur. Larry found out there was a link between Vista Bonita and the Necronomicon. Borden had Larry steal the book, but Larry actually stole two from Hackshaw. One was real, the other was a fake for insurance purposes. The plan was to sell the real one back to Hackshaw and the fake to Borden, but Borden had Mickey killed before he could get back to Larry. Larry says he and Mickey were going to run off with the money and find someplace safe, as Hackshaw and Borden were going to have the rest of the world. Lovecraft is confused, and Larry says that the Necronomicon explains how to call the Old Ones. That a virgin, the last of the unicorn hunters, needs to be sacrificed to bring about their return. Just then the windows to the room explode and Hackshaw's gargoyle lands on the balcony. Lovecraft empties his gun into the gargoyle to no avail, and it kills Larry. Lovecraft grabs the Necronomicon and uses a distraction created by Connie, who bursts in through the front door to kick the gargoyle and the family jewels. Surprisingly, it works. Lovecraft grabs Connie's hand and the two run for it. They head to Connie's place to think over all the new information. Turns out Borden is waiting for them. Connie had called him back at the hotel. Borden gets the book and knocks Lovecraft out. He wakes up on the floorboard of a car with Connie, Borden, and his zombie goon heading for Vista Bonita. Borden catches Lovecraft up on events. They're going to meet Hackshaw and sacrifice his daughter to call the Old Ones. Once there, we find out Hackshaw's ultimate goal. He believes the Old Ones will make him a god. Borden, for his troubles, will get to rule whatever's left of the earth after the Old Ones have their fun. Hackshaw says for Borden to give him the book, and Borden goes over to Connie for a kiss for good luck. She shoots and kills him. She offers Lovecraft the chance to rule the world by her side, and he says nuts to that. She's about to kill Lovecraft when the zombie grabs the gun from her hand. Hackshaw grabs the book and gun and thanks Connie for killing Borden. He tells her he didn't want her to kill Lovecraft as he wants Lovecraft to see what is about to follow. Hackshaw places Olivia on the ground in front of him and begins the incantation to summon Yog-Sothoth. Lightning flashes across the sky and the ground begins to open up under a gazebo nearby. Yog-Sothoth rises from beneath. Hackshaw pushes Olivia towards the creature and a tentacle picks her up. Soon the tentacle starts to sizzle and the monster lets out a shriek and drops the girl. The tentacle then grabs Hackshaw and pulls him towards Yog-Sothoth's gaping maw. Lovecraft tries to save him, but he's unable to hold on as Hackshaw is devoured by the beast. The zombie goon falls over dead and Lovecraft goes to untie Olivia. She is hysterical at first, but Lovecraft calms her down. She then remembers that her father knocked out Grimaldi and has him in the back of their car. Grimaldi comes to and Olivia starts kissing him. Grimaldi tells her to stop, but Lovecraft has already put two and two together. He tells Grimaldi that he has saved the world by having sex with her, that he will be famous and he shouldn't be worried about his wife. Grimaldi sees it differently and asks Lovecraft to keep quiet. Olivia, of course, is not too happy to find out that Grimaldi is married. Lovecraft sees Connie getting into the back of Borden's car and goes over to see her. She asks what happens now. He tells her that Grimaldi is going to take her in for killing Borden. Lovecraft makes it back to his office and has his ending voiceover about how everyone has a better chance at a normal life now that he has the book. The end. So there you have it, folks. Cast a Deadly Spell. As I said earlier, it was a low-budget homage to the detective noir movies of the 40s and 50s. It was directed by Martin Campbell, who would go on to direct bigger and better things, most notably GoldenEye, The Mask of Zorro, Casino Royale, and more infamously, Green Lantern. Budgeted around $6 million, the money was obviously not spent on creature or effects, but they do have their charm, and that was before the CGI era. All the actors do a good job, with Ward standing out as the last man not to sell out his principles. The movie is played straight, but it does have a few light-hearted moments, such as when Lovecraft mistakenly gives people his landlady's business card instead of his own.
Oh, I don't care much for dancing. I got veins in my legs.
There is some mild gore, so you might want young children to stay away. Since it wasn't released on DVD or Blu-ray, you'll have to find it out on a streaming service. All in all, it did keep me entertained for an hour and a half, so I'd certainly recommend it. Until next time.